This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, I'm talking about the worst Social Security mistakes to avoid. Today is a continuation of yesterday's episode on by far the biggest mistake I see people make, which is claiming too early. That is, I would say, the biggest takeaway, most important takeaway from this whole week is that if you are going to file for Social Security, if you're going to get those checks coming in before your full retirement age, which for many of you listening is at or around age 67. If you intend to start any time before that, you better have a really good reason because you are permanently locking in reduced benefits. Ideally, you would start sometime between age 67 to 70. Now, each person's circumstance is different, and I've had lots of clients who have started Social Security much earlier than that. But again, you better have a darn good reason because you are leaving potentially a lot of money on the table if you live into your late 70s, early 80s, which statistically, most of you are going to get there and beyond. Claiming too early is a big mistake that a lot of people make, but we don't want to just consider it from our own lifetime benefits and income and monthly check amounts. If you are married, you also need to think through how this decision of claiming too early, how that can affect your spouse as well. Because this is such a big mistake, I see a lot of people making mistakes. They don't think about the downstream effect of their decision to claim Social Security early 20 plus years down the road when they die and now their surviving spouse inherits those benefits. And guess what? Their checks are lower than they otherwise would have been had you delayed a little bit longer. So it is important to look at how this mistake can impact your spouse if you die first. If you're concerned about financially providing for your spouse, if you're married, hopefully you are, then you need to think through the impact of your decision to claim early on your spouse if they outlive you. This is especially a consideration when you look at the fact that if you are the higher income earner, especially if you're a man and you're listening and you're married and your wife, even if you're the same age, statistically, she's going to outlive you. But in general, there's also can be an age gap and sometimes a significant age gap where the husband is maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years older or more than his younger wife. This is a very common situation. And so that age disparity becomes even more important when you're making that Social Security decision. Because again, if you're the same age statistically and you're a man, your wife is going to outlive you. Just looking at pure odds, I would bet on that. If she's younger, then you're looking at potentially many, many years of providing for your spouse after you're gone, especially if she's female and she outlives you. And she wasn't the higher income earner. You're basing your decision on your higher income. So really careful considerations need to be made here, especially for married couples, especially if there's an age gap, and especially if the male spouse was the higher income earner. Really important to look at delaying Social Security just to lock in a higher benefit, not just now, but down the road. So my point is just consider how your Social Security income is going to be impacted by differences in ages and income, not just now, but in the likely event that a younger spouse or even a same age female spouse is going to outlive a male spouse for many, many years, especially if there's a large age gap. Now, another strategy worth considering is you can have a younger spouse. Maybe they claim their own benefit earlier, then they'll receive spousal benefits later on at full retirement age. Then they can also lock in the higher survivor benefit. So there are ways around this where you can still collect a little bit of Social Security, but not give up that higher survivor benefit. Again, Social Security and when you start should always be carefully considered. It's not something that you can just easily undo, but we want to do so when you're married, especially when there's an age gap, especially when the higher income earner is also the older spouse. Okay, much more important to consider not just your income now again, but the income and the survivor benefits down the road as well. So hopefully that helps you think through. I don't have the time and it's such a nuanced decision. There's so many different options. My point with today's episode is just to help you recognize that it is a decision that needs to be made very carefully, and especially when you are married if you're considering taking Social Security benefits before you reach full retirement age. Now, if you want a free customized Social Security strategy report, you can head on over to truenorthra.com/SSI. Fill out a form, and that goes directly to me, and I'll send you your free Social Security comparison report that allows you to look at differences in taking Social Security at various ages, 62, 65, 67, 70, and you can see how those different options stack up against each other. Very important for making a well-informed decision, and it takes just a couple minutes, and it's free. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.